I'm in the back seat. I can't breathe. And they rushed me over to the hospital. They put me in there.
This is how you know he's black and his wife Hispanic. They're like, we ain't doing no ambulance. We just gonna get in the business.
Just throw me in there. Boy.
Yes.
And so it's like, well, we have an honor culture.
Yeah,
Anywhere
Jay,
we have we're high on honor culture.
Talk about it.
That means you just want to, you want to be able to just.
People please is an actual neurological like disease of the mind.
Wow.
Like it's an actual mental disease. I should be this and I should be that and I should be happy because of this and I shouldn't be happy because of that. You should all over yourself, and now you're living your life based on what you think you should be doing rather than what God has called you to do.
Yeah. Can you get this poor man like a? We said we were gonna get him one. It's on Amazon.
OverChurched season 2.
Welcome back to the OverChurched podcast for people who love Christ but are struggling with Christians. Season 2 is here. This is the best. This is the highlight of 2024.
It is.
We started season 2.
I'm so excited.
This is a special one. We're starting off our podcast with a special guest.
Yes.
But
not a guest.
You're right. I don't think we should ever bring guests. We should only bring family.
Yes.
We're starting it off with extended family. Coming all the way from Southern California. The anointed.
The only. Jeff Osborne.
The living legend himself. Jeff Osborne.
What up?
Let's go over his resume real quick for the people who may not know. Pastor, preacher, coach, author, husband, father. Should have been first. My bad. Husband, father.
Yeah.
Yes.
Fill in the blank, all the above.
Yeah.
My brother, man.
Man, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Episode 2?
No,
Yes,
episode 1.
I mean, season 2?
Season 2.
Episode 1.
Yeah, we weren't going to do a full season without, we wouldn't even start it without you.
Come on now. Y'all gonna be all feeling special. The team all dialed in. I'm like, yo,
Man.
y'all doing it.
Man, to be honest, Delicia likes doing the podcast more than doing church. It's kind of become, it's scary.
It's like,
Really?
it like feeds my soul.
Bro, if I be like, hey, you need to preach Sunday, she's like, do I have to? It's just like, hey, we got the podcast recording. Oh my gosh, let's go. And then she criticizes me. She's like, you don't understand. Like she thinks this is her thing. And I'm like, it's recording.
First off, you want to know how this all started?
Yeah.
I had all this podcast equipment sitting in my garage.
Before COVID.
And then even before we launched Legacy.
Yeah.
I got all this podcast equipment, and then I like set it up in the garage and everything. This guy didn't even want to start. Like he was just like, no, you have to like, you have to have this and you have to do. I'm like, no, you just talk. You just talk. I could talk. Like I could do that. Yeah. I was just like, so let's do that. Let's flow. Because I think the thing with when it comes to being in the church is like, I gotta structure it, you know, and I got a time frame and everything where it's like, we still have a time frame here, but then it's like, we get to go off script a little bit and we could just stay in one spot and I don't have to feel like I have to get all the way through something. Right. Does that, yeah.
No, and even with your guys' title, OverChurched, I loved it. I remember when you guys mentioned it, like, yo, if you can just be free in what you're talking, understand, look, we're having a conversation. We're not preaching. We're not driving home 3 points. This is a conversation.
Yeah.
You can go like Joe Rogan for like 3 hours and be on the same, you know what I'm saying? Why you tired of stale communion crackers for like 3 hours? You know what I'm saying?
Do a lunch break.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But OverChurched, I mean, what does it speak to you when you hear that title real quick? Like just immediately, what's the first thing that comes off your head?
The craziest thing is when you said the word over, go ahead and get that product placement and hold on, let me get a little sip real quick and just look at the camera real quick for a little. Now, when I hear the word, I love the title because if we're gonna be real, everybody's been OverChurched.
Yeah.
I mean, OverChurched through the pandemic, OverChurched pre-pandemic, post-pandemic.
Yes.
I mean, my kids are OverChurched and I'm having to navigate with that. Yeah, and they're teenagers now because of almost 10 years of us, you know, being lead pastors, executive pastors, campus pastors, and trying to find that space. But I think it's a conversation that people need because nobody wants to talk about what is it to be OverChurched?
Yeah.
Most of us are OverChurched, but we're afraid that if I say it, I'm going to get canceled in the church world. Yeah. So I love it. I'm like, yo, okay, I'm coming with the gloves up. Not even always be giving me prerequisites. Don't make sure you don't say this. You still, so I'm fired up.
She's a wise woman. She's a wise woman.
I have to bring her on one time.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for today. So this episode, first of all, you do so much, man. And then on top of all the coaching and consulting and preaching and speaking, you decided you had time to write a book, Prison Break.
Yeah, buddy.
With the best cover I've ever seen.
Look at this. And
so, because it's authentic.
That's my mug shot from 18 years old.
Wow. Okay, bro. So talk us, where did Prison Break come from? Yes. What is this?
Yeah. So that's my book, Prison Break. It's my third book that I've written. And I was trying to figure out the cover. I was just going to do the word Prison Break. And my boy was like, nah, like, I think the front cover of this needs to be your mug shot. Wow. Yeah. And I was always holding that sucker. I see it all the time.
Wow.
Because it was a reminder, 18 years old, 6 armed robberies, attempted murder. And that was my mugshot. Yeah. Even looking at the picture, there's no life in my eyes, like whatsoever. So the theme of the book is Prison Break, 7 habits or 7 mistakes that people make that keep us chained in the prison of people pleasing.
Dang.
And so what I wanted to do was recognize that my desire to want to be liked and approved by people because of my trauma, because of my past, it led me to a physical prison where I almost lost my life. Wow. So I said, then why not create a book with the things that I needed? Because if we are struggling with people pleasing, we're all in prisons, whether it's physical, whether it's spiritual. And so I love the idea of OverChurched because more times than none, we're OverChurched because of people pleasing.
100%. 100%.
Bro, that's crazy. What's crazy is I'm thinking, even as you're talking, I love when people write or speak about stuff they've lived through, not just it's a trending topic or a lot of people could resonate with this. Like, because I think about our relationship, I've known you for almost a decade now. And a lot of like crucial decisions I made for my life came out of conversations that me and you would have.
Right.
And essentially you were trying to get me to, I'm feeling this pressure. Oh, should I stay here? Should I do this?
Yeah.
Do I take this opportunity? And it would literally, you didn't use it in those words yet, but you were essentially helping me like get out of that bubble and out of that prison, that cycle of, but this is what I'm expected to do. And this is what this is
your favorite
needed.
Book you wrote?
So it's funny that you asked that question. Like this book was the book that I feel like all my books, I kind of like they're espresso shots, like straight to the point. I don't like to fluff it. Yeah. So you ain't gonna get this crazy big manifesto. I'm gonna give you the crux of what the meat is. And so this book took me the most to write because in the book, I've got certain tests. I've got certain ways to figure out what type of people pleaser you are, where you people please. But it hit me because while I was writing the book, I was still getting healing.
Wow.
And so this book, I would say, is probably the one that I was the most nervous to promote because it put a lot out there, not just in my personal life, but this subject almost robbed me, not even from prison, but after prison.
Yeah.
It was the moment that I was leading a church, growing church. We had our last Easter service was like in the 7s. And I remember we were traveling, speaking at big conferences. Everybody's like, yo, you should be happy. You should be excited. You crushing it. Beautiful house in La Quinta. And I was battling another form of depression and anxiety. And I think the culmination was a Wednesday night. I go to preach I grabbed my Bible, and I'd been feeling this pain in my back, set up and tear down. I'm the pipe and drape king. You know what I'm saying? You know what it is.
Yeah. Shout out Legacy Church.
But I would preach, take the jacket off, tear down the pipe and drape and the thing. And that Wednesday night, I was setting it up. And as I was setting up, I couldn't breathe. My breathing was getting shallow. I grabbed my Bible and I black out and slam my head on the ground.
Wow.
They rushed me to the hospital. When they rushed me to the hospital, I got all of the doctors coming in. They're trying to run the test. Nadia pulls up. They're like, yo, Pastor Jeff, PJ just went down.
Yeah.
Wow.
They're like, what are you talking about? And so they rushed me to the hospital. I'm in the back seat. I can't breathe. I'm in the passenger seat. Our senior pastor, she was in the back seat. And then my wife was driving. They rushed me over to the hospital. They put me in there. They're like, yo, let's do a stress test.
I want to pause on this.
Yeah.
This is how you know he's black and his wife Hispanic. They're like, we ain't doing no ambulance. We just gonna get in the business.
Just throw me in there. See what
he just passed out. We not paying for no ambulance bill. Put this Negro in the front seat of the car, and we gonna figure it out.
For real. This is worth it.
Hey, she was like, yo, we gonna get there. We gonna get there. Like, you know what I'm saying? She put him in the Mustang too.
I'll be dang if he recovering. We got $1,000 ambulance bill for a 2-minute ride.
Bro,
my bad, bro.
Hey, you a pastor, you gotta be financially responsible. You feel me?
Oh, my bad.
Wise
Keep
woman.
going. That's
Wise
all I
woman.
thought about.
God, dude. So we get there and they rush in, they do all these tests, and they're like, you don't have any pain in your chest. I said, no. They run an EKG. The doctor comes in and he goes, Mr. Osborne, things are gonna move really fast right now. Who's your wife? And in that moment, the only thing I could think of was the Mexican one. That's all I said. It came out your boy's mouth like the Mexican one. You're in the Coachella Valley. There's a lot of Mexicans out there too. And they rushed me upstairs. 6 doctors come in. They say, look, Mr. Osborne, we did 3 EKGs. You're having a massive heart attack. And if you don't do emergency angioplasty surgery, we're afraid you're going to go into cardiac arrest. It's going to tie all into it. I'm going to tell you why. This is huge. Because that means angioplasty, they cut my wrist, went all the way up my arm, across my chest cavity. And mind you, this time, y'all, like, I'm vegan for like 10 years. So the first thing that goes through my head, it was like, man, a brother should have ate some ribs. Like, if I'm going to go out, I almost lost my black card from being vegan, right? Like, they almost snatched that. And I was like, yo, if I'm going out, brother should have had some ribs, should have had.
This is what you're thinking about.
You feel
God.
me? Like, that was my first, I didn't have no holy, like, like moment. I was like, man.
That's crazy.
But then the next thought is like, God, I didn't die empty. Like, I'm signing my death certificate over, like my death waiver in case I die. And I'm like, God, I didn't die empty. Like, I'm in this position. I'm making everybody else happy, but I know you've called me to business. I know I'm not thriving, but I'm somewhat in this area. I've settled and I said, God, if you take me and I die, I'm swinging on everybody up there in heaven. Paul getting these hands, David getting these hands until you throw me back in my body.
Right.
And when I came to, luckily, God just did a miracle on me and they couldn't find anything. But it was in that moment that I recognized, I started reading up and I found out that there's something called the disease to please. And people please is an actual neurological, like, disease of the mind.
Wow.
Like, it's an actual mental disease in which you care more about what other people say, how they perceive you. There's emotional stuff attached to that fear. And it was right then and there that I realized, oh my God, like, I could be a high capacity leader and still struggle with people pleasing.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of put me on this. And here when I was studying, they said the number one sign of a people pleaser is stroke or heart attack.
Wow.
And I was at the height of my people pleasing, afraid that people wouldn't love me if I stepped into what I knew I was called to be, if I transitioned, if I wasn't happy. And that's what caused the whole journey, bro.
Wow. That is so powerful. That's something that I don't think a lot of us now, like, I think we live in a world now that everybody wants to be very self-aware and mindful now. But then also within the church, we don't really take the steps to identify that people pleasing. I think we kind of justify it a lot, right? Like, we justify it like, no, but it's like for God and it's for God's people and like all these things. And I mean, I got into ministry young, so I took what my leaders said, like, all the time. Like, the first time we had to transition, to have our pastors tell us who have been with us since we were 15 years old, tell us like, well, God would confirm that if that was really God. And it was like, what?
Yeah.
Like, what? Like, and so you're battling in your head and you're like, but don't I hear God for myself?
Hello?
Like, don't I hear God for myself? So if I hear God for myself, like, and I'm telling you, like, this was the one time I heard God audibly. Like, I was like, the only time I've ever heard God audibly. And I was like, and we were struggling. We were struggling because we were struggling with this people pleasing because we didn't want to let down the people that we loved so dearly. And these are our leaders who we've entrusted to help shepherd us and lead us. But then them themselves were people pleasers.
Hello.
And so they couldn't help us.
Hello.
And so with that whole thing, it was the first time that I ever saw Justin like completely break down. Like he cried in our senior pastor's arms because of the fact that he just told him that I heard God and God's telling us to go. But he wasn't accepting that. Like he wasn't receiving that. And so it was like in that moment, we're battling like, are we doing what God wants? Are we doing what people want? And if it wasn't for this pastor friend of ours in that same city, we had a good relationship with, but not like super strong. We went over their house. We told them what had happened because they saw us like struggling, battling. And he's like, tell us what the fruits of the Spirit are. So we're like, okay, like, why are you quizzing us right now? So we're like, tell him. I'm like, okay. And then he's just like, okay, where in there is loyalty? He's like, sheesh. No, loyalty is a character trait that is earned. It's not demanded and it's not biblical. It's not biblical. And so when God asks you to do something, you need to do that. Yeah. And it was in that moment that the light bulb was like, oh shoot, like we're doing this for people. We've been, we've been coached or trained in such a way to people please everybody.
You talking.
And we didn't even know until you get out of that. And you're like, hold up, what is happening? Like you're free. Like you're like, whoa, hold on. How did I get here? How did I get to this place or whatever? And I don't think it's so much like even the leader sometimes not intentional in that. They just don't recognize it in themselves, right? Like, so that for me was the first sign of people pleasing, but that was early on in ministry, like immediately our first time in ministry and having positions in this way. But what I would ask you is like, what is some examples that you've had that just for people who are listening, we get the unchurched, overchurched, and dechurched, right? Yeah. So like, and the ones who are very much overchurched, they're either blaming the church, they're upset, they're done, whatever. Yeah. Like, what would you say to somebody like that in that instance of like, well, how do I need to recognize when I'm people pleasing in that way? And I get like the steps that you've written, but what is just one off the top that somebody can?
Like, girl, you so good at this, y'all. I'm like, yo, she laying this up. So look,
that's chapter 1, not having self-awareness.
Yeah, boy, you better go ahead with it, bro. You better go ahead. Look, I'm gonna look at this camera because I gotta say this. Listen. I'm going to get to the brass tacks of it, and I want you to hear me. I want you to hear me when I say this. When we talk about people pleasing, the root of all people pleasing isn't that I'm just a nice person. Yeah. The root of people pleasing is called people idolatry.
Yep, that's good.
It's called people idolatry. So when we talk about people pleasing and you talk about an idol, the word shame is always associated with an idol. An idol is an image that you've made or an image that you're worshiping. And if you don't feel like you've measured up to that idol, you feel shame.
Wow.
You feel guilt. And let's keep it 100. And if you guys are watching this, you can tap this in the comments below and let them know. Any person who struggles with people pleasing, when you make a decision to do something for yourself or for your family, what's the first reaction you feel? Emotion?
Guilt
and shame.
Guilt and shame. And the reason why, and I'm gonna get to the crux of this.
Dang,
so check this out.
I feel bad about myself.
So watch this. You said we've been trained, and I don't think we understand how far we've been trained in people pleasing. I'll give you a case example.
Yeah.
When you're young and you go to the doctor's office Mm-hmm. You want to play. You want to run around. You want to go. What do your parents always tell you when you're young? If they ain't like, sit your butt down, or you're going to get beat.
Yeah.
What do they always do?
You gotta
sit down.
How do they get you to sit down?
I don't know.
Come on, somebody just, they shouted it. Candy.
Oh, yeah.
Chocolate.
Yeah. Bribing.
Bribing.
Yeah.
Ice cream.
We're like, we
stickers.
don't do that. We whoop
I,
that.
you know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't have that. It was just sit down. Don't you embarrass me.
And be quiet.
Sit down.
Or you know what we
sit
go to
down.
the bathroom.
I didn't get bribed.
So watch this. But it's even in school. Everybody sit down, hands on your desk. And then if you do what I tell you to do, then we'll let you go out to recess early.
Yeah.
Your natural inclination at that time when you're young is to play. I want to run. I want to jump. I don't care where I'm at. But they tell you that if you behave in a way that is contrary to how you feel, I'll give you something.
Oh,
wow.
So it may work when we're a kid.
Yes.
But the problem is most of us don't graduate out of that when we get older.
Right.
So whenever somebody dangles something in front of us that we feel we need, and they tell us if we behave in a certain way, we have trained ourselves to say they're the only person who can give it to me. So I'll do, behave, and act however they want so I can get what I want, because I don't really believe that God is the one who will give it to me.
Oh,
wow.
dang.
That's deep.
We have these gatekeepers. I gotta stay in line so the gatekeeper doesn't take away what I want for my future.
100%.
Yeah.
Now I
That's
want you to think about every moment that we people please. Let's keep it 100. It's the hardest lesson I learned. You ready?
Yeah.
I allowed it.
Yeah. 100%.
You're a victim on one end, but you're also the perpetrator on the other end.
Right.
I like that.
Because deep down inside, you're doing it because you want something from them.
Yeah.
But the lie as a people pleaser that you tell yourself is you're doing it because you're a nice person. You're doing it because you just care about that person. When in all actuality, it may be the validation that you get from that individual. It may be the love that you're trying to receive from somebody. It may be a tangible thing that if I just do what they tell me to do, then maybe they'll see how nice I am to them and they'll treat me right, or they'll treat me happy, or I'll get that promotion. And this is why I'm gonna lay it all the way out. People pleasing is always rooted in two things.
Come on.
Say it.
Childhood upbringing.
Yeah.
And situations in your adolescence, or it's rooted in the fear of abandonment and loss. As a child, if your parents always told you to keep your mouth shut, you don't have a place to speak, you do as you said, or if you're in a child and you are in a traumatic situation where you would get beat if you voice your opinion. As a child, you teach yourself that if I just go along with what people tell me, it can become a defense mechanism and a protection for me. So as a child, you adopt that. And as you grow older, you train your mind to think that if I feel I'm in a hostile or dangerous situation, if I just go along with it, it's going to protect me.
Wow. And this is probably why, I mean, instantly when you said that, it just reminds me of so many women I've come across in domestic relationships or even in just horrible marriages or whatever the case might be from their choices and their husbands, right? But at the same time, I just think about like, sometimes I've looked at people like, why are you acting like you can't say nothing? Why won't you say something? Or why won't you talk? Or why won't you? And it's like, because they're imprisoned. Like they're 100%. In prison by, I just know because this is my source. Like this is who is going to support me. This is who 100%. I don't know what to do without them in this place. And it's people pleasing, but it's the idolatry of that person.
You've made them an idol, and the other side of it is fear of loss or rejection. And so I'm afraid that if I say something that they don't like, they're going to reject me, or it's abandonment issue. They're going to leave me. They're going to reject me. They're going to be lost. And that thought is so tainted that you'll do whatever it takes to keep them, even at your expense.
100%.
Okay. And then that gets scary because, like you said, that's your choice. You're choosing, well, I don't want to lose them, so I'll do whatever. So you're not innocent. But the scary part is people like that, you talk about that, my bad, in chapter 4, they become the monster of manipulation. Talk to us about that, because they will use that against you. Like people know how much they can, they won't say no.
Yeah.
So talk to us about that.
Chapter 4 is my favorite chapter of the whole book. I'm so glad. I'm like, yo, but you asked about it. How do you recognize? The first thing I tell everybody, and you need to hear this, is awareness of is the freedom from.
Awareness of is the freedom from.
I tell all my coaching clients that it doesn't matter where they are. As an identity coach, I coach CEOs, professional athletes, Fortune 500 companies and things like that. And I tell them the first thing to be able to change your life is the awareness of is the freedom from. You can't become free of something that you're not aware you have.
Wow.
And so when we struggle with people pleasing, again, it's rooted in this idea, I'm just a nice person. I'm doing these things.
I'm a good Christian.
Yeah, I'm a good Christian. Jesus served.
Yeah.
And you know, Christianity is not about joy. You got to carry your cross every single day. So this is the cross that I have to carry. This is my pastor. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to.
That's the whole, we're going to talk about that.
Bro, like, you know what I'm saying? So, but when you talk about the idea of manipulation, when you're a people pleaser, manipulative people understand there are triggers and switches they look for as a manipulator that they know to switch. And I talk about it in that chapter. I talk about some of the switches that people will see who are manipulators. They'll look at you, and one of the things that they'll do, for a prime example, is they will leverage emotional disapproval and watch your reaction of how you respond when they ask you something.
Yeah.
So here's what I mean. Hey, you know what? I got to leave out the airport and I'm leaving at 6 o'clock in the morning. And so you're the only person that will take me. You know, can you take me?
Yeah.
And then they'll watch you. Well, and as a people pleaser, the first thing you're going into is how can I accomplish this? Because if I don't do it, they're going to think that I'm a bad person. They're going to think, whatever you fill in the blank. So, well, you know what? So instead of saying, no, well, let me check my schedule. But look, I'm telling you that I need you to do this. You're the only one who can do this. So they start laying the emotional weight, because people pleasers don't have a high emotional quotient or an EQ. Emotional quotient is our ability to handle emotion. So because of that, they know we crumble under that weight or people pleasers. We crumble under those weights, or recovering people pleasers. So what they'll do is they'll keep putting it on you and make you feel like them not being to accomplish what they want to accomplish, regardless of their lack of planning, is your fault if it doesn't come to pass.
Yikes.
Wow. That's, you know, as you're saying that, I'm thinking like, how many times, what would you say to leaders in the church who are using this? Or maybe they're like, oh, I could kind of see some of those things that I've done, like I have done, you know, say that they're listening and they want to change in some way. Like, how do you you've become aware, but now how do you make those changes in yourself? Of course, they're in the church. So of course, God is a God of miracles and healing. And in that, if that's what you truly want, but even as a leader, what would you say for somebody to help recognize, or what would you say to leaders like that who are utilizing that manipulation and understanding people pleasing? Because they understand it.
Oh, 100%.
Because they're the leader.
Oh, absolutely.
So they understand it, and it's a weight that you have to struggle and wrestle with to not being that type of leader.
I love it. Girl, you so good at these questions, dude. Jay, come on, big dog. Like, yo, you ain't lying. But I think here's what I think leaders need to understand.
Yeah.
If you have to manipulate somebody into doing something, they're not called to do that thing.
Yeah.
And so by you manipulating them and forcing them to try to do something that they don't want, you immediately eliminate somebody who's praying to do that position.
Yeah.
Wow.
Then as a leader, you're wondering why there's no growth in that area. You're wondering why there's no energy or entheos, God-breathed energy in that ministry or what you're doing. Or it's only a matter of time before that person has a meltdown, a breakdown, has an infidelity issue, has something emotionally where they just leave the church altogether. And so I think leaders need to understand that if I got to manipulate somebody to do it or put that weight on them, chances are they're not called to do that position. You rob yourself of somebody stepping into that position, and now your rate of retention is way lower.
That's a good point.
And so if pastors would just understand, and it's different than saying, and I'm talking as a pastor, having been a lead pastor, executive pastor, campus pastor, is there are people in the ministry. You have to find people who are called to that ministry,
right?
Not because they can do the task, but because there's an actual spiritual calling on them to actually do the task.
Yeah.
And when people get over church, I think it's also the job of a leader to recognize and see, hold on, you saying yes to too many things.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell every pastor who's watching this right now, if you got somebody who is on your team and they're saying yes to every single thing you're asking, they're a people pleaser.
Wow.
And you would be doing them a huge disservice if you don't question why they're at the church 24/7. Where is their family? Where are their kids? Where is your life when it comes to this situation? And so I think it's double-sided.
I love that, because I think the one thing that we've come up against at Legacy is like, okay, we want to go over the D Church and OverChurched, right?
Mm-hmm.
What we didn't realize is how long that onboard really takes from our team and everybody training, because
long runways.
And I think that was probably the most unrealistic expectation first coming into ministry. Was like, I think what our leaders had faulted to us was like, you just got to get people in there. You just got to get people. You just got to get people. And it's like, what we're starting to gauge is like, no, like it's our job as the leader, as the shepherd, as the pastor, to help these people to understanding like, hey, why do you keep saying yes to things? I need you to pause. Like, how's your family? How's your marriage? How's your kids?
You got to protect them from themselves.
Yeah. And I've had leaders be,
I love that.
Yes. What'd you say, babe?
You got to protect people from themselves.
And I honestly feel like that's what we've been doing a lot within Legacy, is helping people recognize, like, stop doing what you're so accustomed to doing. Stop moving the same way that we're here to see it differently. And it's even come from us where it's like, we've had friends ask us like, why do you do that way? And I'm like, oh, because I've always been trained that way.
Yeah.
It's a pause that you have to take to realize, I don't. Is this what God is asking of me, or is this what I picked up from man?
Yeah.
Bro,
what is God asking of me, and what has He given me to? Because for the longest, as a woman in ministry and as a mom, and doing this alongside with Jess, it's like a lot of the time, it was like my family came last. It wasn't shown.
Girl, if Nadi was right here, she'd be shouting.
And I mean, like, it was a battle that I had to come, like, me and God had to wrestle with. And I had to get to a point where I feel like in this place, it is so much freedom. It is so much freedom. I love what your book is about, because I feel like it's been a constant journey for us since we started in ministry to releasing that and getting to that point.
And well, you said you feel like, you know, your family had to sacrifice for the sake of the ministry. And here's the scary thing. I think that church leaders, when you talk about the idolatry that really is the root of people pleasing, I think, and I'm not saying it was intentional from the beginning, but I've seen it like the ultimate monster of manipulation, the method for manipulation while making it sound Christian. And it's so bad. I refuse to put it in our values, because I've seen it get abused so often when it comes to how to train or manipulate people. Pastors use the guise, well, we care about honor here. It's all about honor.
Boy.
And they'll use honor as the justification for abuse.
Yes.
Boy.
Yes.
And so it's like, well, we have an honor culture.
Yeah,
anywhere we have we're high on honor culture.
Talk about it.
That means you just want to have nothing. Like you want to be able to just go on and on to where they're at church more than they're at home.
Yeah.
And they never say no, because we got to honor. And I'm like, I refuse to make it a value.
Oh, one.
Not that I don't believe in honor, but I've seen honor culture essentially become indentured servanthood.
But how is honor just one way?
Yeah.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you. How do you, because we talk about it, you're big on honor.
Yeah, I'm huge.
You know, but how do you separate honor from manipulation? How do you live a life of honoring versus a life of people pleasing?
Yeah, I love that, dude. So you nailed it dead, like honor. Well, if I don't do this, I'm not honoring my pastor. If I don't do this, then I'm not honoring what God has done. If I don't, like, even people say it, like they say when I used to pastor and we would do the growth tracks and we do all this stuff, they would say, you know, serving the church is where you're going to find your purpose in life. No, it's not. Like they tell you that that's the only place that you're going to find your purpose is in serving a ministry. So we get you worked up to serve a ministry. And so you're serving the church, you're serving a ministry. Now, are there things that you can do? Can it help you? Absolutely. If you know yourself.
Yes. If you know yourself.
But if you're trying to say, man, my pastor said I'm going to find my ministry doing I'm going to find my calling in life doing parking lot. So I'm going to be out there 120 degrees, like just doing my thing, right? And all of a sudden God's going to be like, there it is, my son. Like, you know, you called to be a backup dancer. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
I think that when you volunteer, it helps you get out of selfishness. And that's the main core of Christianity.
100%.
To be selfless, to give of yourself. But when you say, okay, I got to show up every single Sunday because if I don't, I'm not going to find my purpose.
Well, what happens when you stay in that ministry longer than you're supposed to because you found that was your purpose? So now if I asked her, if, you know, we have an amazing creative team, and if their purpose was only in creating content, what happens when we are like, hey, we actually need you to go do parking lot? But I've found my purpose in being behind the camera.
I think again, it's also knowing if there's a need for it, and you guys are like, yo, we over and we need you out there in the parking lot for this time. Not just I'm moving you for the sake of moving you. You want people in your church to do what they are created to do. So when we talk about honor, here's what I'm saying. We talk about honor. So much of honoring pastors and honoring man. But when you are disingenuous to who you are as an individual, you dishonor God.
There we go.
So what people idolatry is, I magnify the opinions of man more than I magnify the opinion of God. I magnify what men and women and people want me to be rather than who God has called me to be. And so when we struggle with people idolatry, what we're doing is we would rather honor man then honor God at the expense of the God-given talents and attributes that he put inside of us. Because if I'm not doing parking lot ministry, but I'm called to do service flow or be a service coordinator or I'm great at greeting people, but they said they need it over here and I don't want to say anything because I'm going to be looked down upon. You are doing God a disservice to the gifting that he's placed inside of you. So the first thing that we're called to do is to honor God.
First and foremost.
That's number one. That means, what are the giftings? What are the purposes? What are the things that are inside of you that nobody has to convince you, push you to do? What are the things that you are naturally inclined to do? And then you go find the ministry that works within your greatest gifting.
100%.
Because that's how the church is going to flow. That's how you're not going to get burnout. That's how you're going to be able to recognize that people are doing things that really fuel them. But the honor thing comes down to, you're going to have to do, you're going to have to do what you don't want to do, because church is not about doing what you want to do all the time. You got to do what you don't want to do so you can do what you want to do.
You're right.
And I love how Watchman Nee put it this way. I love this. He says, everybody talks about the idea of you got to carry your cross. So honoring, not getting no sleep, working 6 services, your kids never get to see you, but you're doing it all in the name of God. This is just my cross that I have to carry. Watchman Nee said, no. He said, carrying your cross is a result of divine obedience. So Jesus was obedient to the fact that he had to die in the Garden of Gethsemane. He said, God, not your will be done, but it's my will. That obedience caused him to carry the cross that he was called to carry, which was his purpose, to be the salvation for all of humanity. The obedience we have to God is to say, God, you've created me to do this. And so my purpose and my calling is the cross that I have to bear. The persecution that comes with you being authentically you is persecution, because people want you to be who they think you should be rather than who God has called you to be. So when it comes to honor, I think honor starts with God. You honor God, you honor your family, 100%. Then you honor ministry.
That's
so good.
Scripture. I can't remember where I said it, but the verse says Jesus was obedient even to the death. So obedient. I agree 100%. Like the obedient, I would even say, I don't think I'm going to get scrutinized if I say this wrong. So I'm saying this knowing I could be wrong. I don't think honoring men is biblical. I think honoring God causes me to honor men.
Absolutely.
It's because I don't think, well, first let me honor God, then no. If I just honor God, the overflow of that is that I'm going to honor men, and honoring men is sometimes telling them no. Absolutely. Because for me to say yes, brother, like that's still honor.
Well, you gonna have me run around this studio right now.
I think that's dangerous. But I also think when you talk about honor, it's dishonoring for me to force someone into being who I want them to be, not who God's created them to be. That's dishonoring.
Well, when you say that, I think it's Colossians, where it's like you work and do everything unto him.
Unto him, yeah.
And I remember having that at my dental office, working in the dental office as an assistant. I hated that job, but like it was because of the people. They were so manipulative. They're disrespectful. They didn't care, but they just want to work you, right? And I had that scripture across my screen so I could see it every day, because I said, it does not matter how I am treated right now. I'm going to honor you in all that I do, but then yet my yes be yes and my no be no. And I'm going to have those boundaries with that. And that was my responsibility. And I think that for a lot of people listening, there could be the ones on here that could be like, yeah. Talk about those leaders, talk about that manipulation. But it, like you said, it's half of you being a perpetrator.
Yeah.
It's half of you being a perpetrator. And you have to know, I will say, as a pastor, as a leader, I have come to people and been like, okay, can you do this?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah.
And then you find out they upset and they do it. Yeah.
And they'll be like, they ran me right. They did this. And I'm like, you said yes.
Or you didn't say no.
You didn't say no.
Not the yes, that's the problem. It's your no, that's the problem.
Yes.
And the chapter, The Monster of Manipulation, chapter 4 is rooted in that manipulation is a two-sided monster when you're a people pleaser. So on one side, it's the manipulator. But when you are a people pleaser, you need to hear this.
Yeah.
You are also a manipulator as well.
Wow.
Because you're trying to do things and you're trying to say things so that you can get them to react in a way that makes you feel good.
Or they view you in a certain way.
So you're not innocent.
Yeah.
You're not a victim of people pleasing. You are also the suspect and the aggressor of it at the same time. So when we talk about it, I'll give you the case in point. If anybody has ever done this, I'm going to say this, and I promise you, people pleaser, you probably going to throw your phone at this screen or run when you say this. I'm going to show you a case of people pleasing right now. Have you ever had a phone conversation and knew you had to have a phone conversation? And before you had the conversation, you mapped out the entire conversation in your mind so that you can try to get through all the rebuttals that they might say, so you can figure out how they might do what they do? That is a sign of a people pleaser.
Dang, I'm guilty.
Because you're trying to manipulate the conversation so you can get the outcome you want rather than just letting the conversation breathe and have an actual organic reaction and knowing that if I am in line with who I am, I'm not responsible for their response.
Yes. I'm not responsible for their response. I'm not responsible for your response. I'm responsible for my yes, my no, or being true.
Facts.
But I'm not responsible.
That's so good.
Two things.
That's so good.
Number one, as I was listening and thinking, I already want to recant what I said. The Bible does talk about honoring men. It says, give honor to where honor is due. It does say, okay, so I was just emotional and I was, I got to honor God and that'll take care of everything.
Talks about honor.
Okay. So you don't even got to make a comment. I know I was wrong. I admit it. But here's the thing I was thinking about. When it comes to that responsibility of, I'm responsible for saying yes or no, I'm not responsible for your response. I think the danger, especially in church with Christians, when it comes to people pleasing, is they avoid the responsibility of their response by, once they feel like they can no longer people please, they disappear. Instead of dealing with, hey, I can't do it. Like, that's what blows my mind. So, I mean, we're about to hit our 1 year. By the time this gets recorded, we'd have just hit 1 year.
Go. The 1 year at Legacy Church.
At Legacy Church, Legacy is 1 year old. That's crazy.
Yeah, I'll drink to that one right there.
But we were talking about, like, it's been amazing the type of people that God has brought. And then it grew so fast and we were blown away. But then we were talking about, wait a minute, I haven't seen like once you take a minute to think and reflect, because you keep meeting people. And then you're like, wait a minute, we got some casualties along this year. We're like, what happened? We were talking about what happened to so-and-so? What happened to them?
Yeah.
And we realized like a lot of the people that disappeared, like, wait, they were on the team. They were involved. Like how'd they just disappear? And we realized they would rather disappear than disappoint. Hey, that was oily.
Come on, baby.
Hey. You're breaking stuff.
Yes, sir.
In Prison Break season 2.
Yes, sir.
Let me do a forward.
Yes, sir.
But seriously, and I'm like, that's
a new thing with this generation, I would say. Like the silently quitting. Yeah. I feel like because
they don't want to deal with the response of, hey, I can't do this anymore. Like they think we're going to cuss them out, or, well, don't you care about God, or don't like this. How are you? And as opposed to give us a chance to say, hey, no worries. Take a month off. Take us, they didn't even give us a chance to pastor them.
I'll tell you why.
Go ahead.
In the book, there's a section where I talk about something called emotophobia.
Emotophobia. Did you invent that word?
No. I wish I did.
Somebody Google this, please.
No. So a neuroscientist and a psychological therapist coined the phrase.
Okay.
And I talk about him in the book. But emotophobia is an actual fear, a phobia of a negative emotional response from a person.
Dang.
So as you begin to look, here's what it is in emotophobia. I am so afraid that you will emotionally show disapproval that just the thought of it will send me into a frenzy. And I'll attest, that was me.
Wow.
I had emotophobia so bad. I remember there was a time that we had Easter service. We had Christmas services at our campus, right? Our campus was doing things a lot different. And so we were in a movie theater, so we had the opportunity to watch a movie, do it for the kids, do something different. Well, the other main campus didn't have that option. So we had it all set up. We got to do things because we were set up in Teardown. You get to do things because you're a big, place. You get certain things. Yeah. And it was said that, well, if it's not done over here, then it's not going to be done over there.
Wow.
And immediately I remember myself getting frustrated. I'll never forget. I was in the mall with Nadia and I found out that they had vetoed it. Wow. And I was like, we don't get this and that. So I had to make the phone call to call the pastor. And I remember just the thought of them being like upset with me. I had to like, how like you breathe in and you start shaking. Like,
that's crazy. You're a grown man.
I'm a grown man.
Leading people.
A
husband, a father.
100%.
And it still could attack you.
Speaking in front of thousands of people, leading companies while I'm doing conferences and speaking at businesses. Yeah. But when it came time for me to speak up for myself, I couldn't do it.
I'll speak up for everyone else but me.
But because that's what you do.
Yes.
Yeah. Because you value everybody else's well-being. So it's not that you're a coward. It's just you're a coward when it comes to you.
Wow. Dang.
You're just a coward when it comes to you.
Bro, I understand that.
Like you saw, I was like,
Bro.
And why? I just wanted, so Nadia's watching me. So Nadia, there ain't no ounce of people pleasing in Nadia whatsoever.
That's my
I think it's a Hispanic thing.
I think
she a dog. Like she a dog. She would look at me like, "What's wrong with you? You're 6'3", 240 pounds. Like, and you're
carry it well.
And
you look
I appreciate that. You know what I'm saying? Hello. But she would look at me, and for her, it was so strange.
Yeah.
And I think for somebody watching this, they're probably wondering why their spouse can't just say no.
Oh, that's good.
Just say no. Why can't you do that? And they look at them, but they don't understand there is so much trauma that is attached to people pleasing that unless you deal with the trauma and the ungodly beliefs that you hold, that's rooted in you making yourself a priority, you'll miss it. And so I'm so grateful for Nadia because she recognized like my husband is really dealing with an issue. And when I began to realize that people please is an actual psychological issue, it changed my questioning.
Yeah.
So the questioning as a people pleaser, you're always asking, what's wrong with me?
Yes. You're asking the wrong question.
What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Until you ask the right question. In coaching, I talk about how thinking leads to questions. Questions lead to answers, and answers lead to solutions.
Yes.
Thinking leads to questions. Oh, why am I doing that? Well, why are you doing that?
Right.
Thinking leads to questions. Questions leads to answers. Well, maybe I'm doing it because of this. Those answers lead to solutions that you need to have.
Right.
So instead of asking the question, what's wrong with me? Instead ask, what happened to me?
Wow. That's so good.
We talked about this.
That's so good.
What happened in my life where I told myself that this was a defense mechanism? What happened in my life where I told myself that if I stood up for what I really want or say what I want, that people are going to leave? And what happened when I told myself that these are the only people in the world who are going to love me, who are going to partner with me, who are going to see the gifting in me for what God has? And you take this to the church, and we carry this same mentality into the church. And then we get upset when we feel like we're abused, or we feel like we're taken advantage of, or the pastor didn't see me after I did all of these nice things for him. How dare he just use me? And then we leave.
Instead of having the hard conversation of, hey, I love you, I honor you, and because of that, I have to say no to this.
But is it really a hard conversation?
For a people pleaser, it's hard.
But I'm saying, like, even having that mentality, it shouldn't be.
Yeah, it should be a natural.
But should is also a form of idol worship, because should indicates that there is a way that you're supposed to do something. So I should be able, that was my problem. I should be able to stand up for other people. You should all over yourself.
I should all over myself.
Like, we got to stop shoulding all over ourselves. I should be like this. I should behave like this. I should act like this. I should be this, and I should be that. And I should be happy because of this. And I shouldn't be happy because of that. You should all over yourself. And now you're living your life based on what you think you should be doing rather than what God has called you to do. So the answer is yes, it's a hard conversation. If you keep putting that person as your God. In Matthew 14, I think it is. I love when the Pharisees come to Jesus and they're about to question him. And they say, okay, Jesus, we know that you take no consideration to man's position or what manner of man they are. So right off the bat, they say, we already know you only care about what God says, and you don't care about position. You don't care about status. And then they proceeded to ask the question. I'm almost certain it's in Matthew 14. I could be wrong, but it's in Matthew, right? And the idea is you can't be a people lover and a people pleaser at the same time.
Dang. You can't be a people lover and a people pleaser at the same time.
Because at the end of
because if I really love you, I'm going to be authentic and real with you. But the story we tell ourselves is if I people please, I'm going to save the relationship.
I don't want to hurt you.
I don't want to hurt you, but you end up hurting them anyway because they're getting a disingenuous form of who you are. So they don't even get the real you. And then you start building resentment because they're doing things that you're saying they're manipulating, but you're manipulating so that they like you. And I just wonder in the church, how many people would not be at the church that they're at? They would not be with the people they're dating if they had just been the real them.
Wow.
How many pastors, trip on this, let's talk about OverChurched, right? How many pastors are leading congregations that look nothing like them, sound nothing like them, believe nothing like them, because they're trying to please the status quo of how churches should be? You've got a whole leadership staff that you are exhausted trying to lead because you won't authentically be you.
You hate the church you lead.
What?
You know how many pastors either work for a church they wouldn't go to, or lead a church that they don't even like?
Man of God, I'm gonna throw my shoe at you.
Bro, I got friends who won't like friends, and I'm like, why? They don't love the city they're in, but I can't leave.
Because of the name of the church.
Because I'm going to let these people down. Really? You already.
You got my neck all hot right now. I'm so fired up.
No, I'm thinking about
it's real talk.
Because we just planned it. So now we're in this circle of people that are planting churches. And as you're talking, I'm thinking about myself. I'm thinking about my family.
So much. But
I'm also starting to think about like conversations like I've been having or we've heard. And this is a epidemic, bro. People pleasing.
It'll blow your mind how many CEOs I'm coaching and how you. everybody wants to find their identity. I want to know who I am and I want to find my purpose. But until you first identify the areas where you're people pleasing, this is what I focus on. Let's first identify where there's people pleasing.
Yeah.
Because until you get rid of people pleasing, you will never recognize who you are.
Yeah.
And then once you recognize who God created you to be and who you are, then you can begin to live a life by design instead of default.
Yeah.
And I remember our conversations that we had where you were getting ready to start the church and you're like, man, but all these people are offering me all these positions and maybe I need to be like this and maybe I should just go like this.
It was October. I have it on my phone in our conversations. Keep going. I'm listening.
But I remember the conversation.
Convo with Jeff.
Yeah, bro, you were like, we feel like we're called to entrepreneurs. We're called to do church different. We're called to be able to, and you begin to lay out all of the ways that you guys wanted your church to be.
Yeah.
And I said, then bro, why would you try to create a church that is anything but that? Your church and the leaders that come to your church will pull people who have the appetite for what you have an appetite for.
Wow.
And so not everybody eats at Texas
I was about
Roadhouse.
to go take a job. You talked me out of taking a job at a very
bruh.
Yeah.
I was like, bro, they just hit me up.
Dog, and I ain't gonna lie to you, I was like, yo, like my dog.
Like we there.
Yeah, I was like, man, Negro, if you don't say yes to this.
Like, you know.
And then we talked it through.
Yeah.
That was a long conversation. I remember going from my garage to my car to getting home.
You start pacing and everything.
Because I was ready to say yes based on what I thought it would look like or it made sense. And you were like, would you? The way we broke it down to me, I'll never forget. You said, what are you passionate about? And I was like, I'm passionate about athletes, entrepreneurs, like being able to do things differently. And you're like, do you feel like you could reach those people by subjecting to this other organization? And I was like, well, no. And I was like, and you were like, what allows you to reach your purpose more? Forming and taking this, I mean, and it was all guaranteed. It was, you know, the salary, like everything, the stability was more guaranteed. And you were like, or branching out and starting it.
Keep going.
And I was like, it was scary. It was hard, but that's when I know I was like, I'm not called to work for any other church anymore.
Okay, so hold that.
Yeah.
You guys on Easter Sunday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Months in.
3 months.
3 months in. I was going to say 4. 3 months in.
Yeah.
4 months in. Your numbers were what?
1,200.
It was like 1,200 and some people.
1,200.
Yeah.
3 or 4 months into you launching.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Your first Christmas service, how many?
Right under 1,000.
Okay, watch this. Proverbs 18:16.
Okay.
This is the verse of why most people aren't living in their calling. Why more people have cancer.
Ooh.
There's a thing called psychoneuroimmunology. Psychoneuroimmunology.
Somebody Google that, please.
Which it's in the book too. I write it down in the book. Watch this.
Yeah.
It means that this is scientific.
Yeah.
The longer a person stays out of the alignment of who they know they're called to be, their physical body starts to break down.
Wow.
We have more cancer, migraines, arthritis,
so true.
depression, anxiety than ever before. Not because you're an anxious or depressed person. More times than not, it's because you are living a life that you know you're not supposed to live and you're trying to convince yourself to like it.
Ooh. Oh my gosh.
So watch.
That's crazy.
My marriage isn't working the way I want it to work. I'm trying to parent, but it's not working. I'm trying to start this company. It's not working. I'm trying to elevate in this job, but it's not working. Here's the problem. Proverbs 18:16 says this. We quote it all the time in the church. If you OverChurched, you know this verse. Proverbs 18:16. Your gifting will make room for you and bring you in front of great men.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great people.
Yes.
Here's the challenge. God can't place you in front of great rooms because you aren't being you.
Yes.
He says your giftings will place you in front of great people.
Yeah.
The reason why you're not operating in any of your giftings is because you're too afraid to be you. And as a result of you not being you, you can lie to everybody else and say you love it. I'm going to tell you one person you can't, there's 2 people you can't lie to, God and yourself in the mirror.
Right. That is so good, Jeff. That is so good.
So when I watch what you guys do at Legacy, and as you know, you just said we're hitting 1 year, and I say we because I'm on the board of Legacy, and I'm honored to do that. I'm watching you guys lead authentically. And this is why this is so refreshing for me. I was so afraid. I got tattoos all over. I got my wife's portrait on my hand. I got a nose ring. I tell everybody I'm the spicy pastor out of the group, right? Right? But I was so afraid. I've always wanted to get my wife's portrait on my hand. I got my kids. I was so afraid to get this tattoo on my hand because I told myself that if I had to walk into the corporate world, that white people would look at me like my past. People wouldn't take me serious. Pastors wouldn't have me come and speak. And so what I began to do was water down the creativity and the spiciness of who God had called me to be. But here's the craziest thing about it. The reason why we asked the question, why do Christians love these Cardi B's, and like people love Cardi B. My wife loved Cardi B. Not necessarily the music, but the freedom that she came out with to say what she wanted to say, act how she wanted to act. That is refreshing to people. The reason why you'll see more Christians promote a artist and you'll see them lift their hands on Sunday, and as soon as they go into the car, they turn in this and they doing this, is because they love the idea of how free that artist gets to be. So we live vicariously through them because we won't live authentically who we are. So we love their freedom. So we'll live through their freedom. We'll support their freedom. But because I'm a Christian, I can't walk like this. I can't act like this. And there are things that you can't act like. So don't get me twisted. You know what I'm saying? Don't
holiness
try to take it out.
Holiness.
Holiness matters. Righteousness matters. Don't play with it. I don't play with my marriage. I don't play with my kids. And I don't play with my time with God in the morning. The only reason why I'm able to do what I'm doing is because of the prophetic anointing, and I take righteousness serious.
Oh, for sure.
But here's the craziest thing about it. And this is why I'm counting why you guys have seen the growth that you've seen. And I'm watching it firsthand, is because the moment I got this tattoo, and I was just free to say, God, whoever you want to bring in my life, to speak to the corporations, I know what I do. So if they don't want me because of how I look, because of how I act, that's their loss. When you lead the way you two lead, having this podcast OverChurched, I'm looking at the whole team. Everybody's happy. They smiling. You cracking jokes. You talking, and you doing what you're doing. When people live in alignment with their assignment and with their identity, it's refreshing. It's like a drink of water, and you pull people who value transparency and authenticity.
Bro, this is what you said to me on October 3rd, 2022. Because I was struggling with, like, I feel like doors are closing. They want us to do X, Y, Z, like all these, or you said, God didn't shut us out from blank. We'll let certain organizations remain anonymous and individuals remain anonymous. He said, God didn't shut us out from them. He shut us in. If we took the money, we would have had momentary security that would have cost us the legacy God has for us. That's what you told me on October 3rd.
I said that?
Bro, you said that. Dang. You said if we took the money from an organization to and lived up or sacrificed, our ethos,
who we were,
didn't allow her to be a pastor, changed the city that we wanted to plan in. If we would have done the things to get the money to please people, because that's all it really came down to. It was optics. It was like, hey, we believe in you guys, but we need you to make some changes because it's rubbing other people the wrong way. And that's what I was praying and fasting and having a hard conversation. Like, am I tripping? Should I do this? Should we wait a couple years? And you said, if we would have took the money, we would have had momentary security that would have cost us the legacy God has for us. Then you said, nobody can take credit for our story but God. We didn't have a story. It was October. We didn't even have we didn't have nothing. There wasn't no 1,200 people at Easter. There was nobody. It was nobody. You said nobody can take credit for our story but God. And then you said this. You said, God has called us to build something different. Eyes have not seen, ears have not heard. And you told me I needed to memorize and keep reading Isaiah 60 over and over.
Boy,
this was October 3rd, 2022. Wow. Now we're at January 2024, and thousands of people have been through Legacy. The mayor vouches for us, and like crazy stuff.
And look at who he surrounded you guys with, like Brandon. And you're watching what they're doing. And
honestly, it's the people. It's the people who is brought,
it's like you said, it's the right
our
people.
team here and just the people that have been placed in here.
And that's a legacy. A legacy is the people. It's not a brand. It's the type of people that make legacy are authentic
self. And when you know who you are, God will bring the people to support what he's placed in you.
Yeah.
And then going back to that honor thing, I honor man because God requires me to honor man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm honoring what God is doing through you and not so much honoring you over what God is calling me to do.
Yes.
And so I'm going to honor the position you have. I'm big on honor.
Yeah,
I got people that I honor when I travel. I'm honoring the house. I'm honoring the pastors. I'm honoring these spiritual forefathers. I'm always operating honor.
Right.
Honor has an honor's reward. And John Bevere talked about that.
Yep.
But honor doesn't mean manipulation.
Yeah.
You just brought up the point. He has a whole book about that. And his heart of that book was that same thing. It's not to people please.
No.
But I've seen pastors use that same. What's the name of the book?
Honor's Reward.
Is that the name of the book?
He rewrote it.
He rewrote it.
He rewrote one.
What's the
first one? I don't remember. I don't remember.
I don't even.
Oh, bro, he wrote a book. But long story short, people use it to manipulate of why you don't speak it, why you don't ask questions, why you don't challenge your. You know what I mean? Like people have used his genuine God honoring book as a manipulative strategy of why you don't leave this church without the blessing of a pastor. Like, bro.
Let me tell you this. Sometimes, and this is why this is huge when it comes to honor. Here's the hardest lesson that I learned. I was going to do a transition, and one of the leaders who was in my life at that time, he said to me when I was going to transition, immediately when I said it, he went to a manipulation tactic. And I remember I said, no. I'm not going to allow you to manipulate this situation. I know what God had called me to do. And then he proceeded to say, he says, well, if you said that you're going to be coaching, like no offense, but shouldn't you have had accomplished something if you're going to coach?
Wow.
So this is somebody
Try to
that
make you feel unqualified.
Absolutely. So then if they can't get you through intimidation, they're not going to get you for disqualification. They're going to come for your character assassination.
Wow.
And you got to watch that as a sign of manipulation.
Did God really say?
Did God really say? Did you say, yeah, but you think that, you're going to be able to do this. Scary. And it's a lot harder than what you think.
Who's the first person to ever say, did God really say?
Boy.
Ooh, the snake.
Who's the first person to ever make you question what God told you? That's a scary. That right there should scare you.
That's how they get you. And so I just say, all in all, when you look at those, here's why we get scared, because we think that if that person is a visionary leader, then they've got to have the vision for my life. The hardest lesson I learned and the best lesson I learned is sometimes visionary leaders don't have the capacity to hold the magnitude of the vision that God placed on your life.
Right.
And oftentimes the people closest to you don't have a real revelation of you.
And I heard a really great pastor, Pastor Chris Hodges said, I loved how he said it. He was like, I have a vision for this house, but there's people in here that have a vision that God's given them too. So like he was saying, he was bringing on people on his team for them to live the vision that God has given them and bringing them onto his staff and things of that nature. Because he would see things in people and he's like, I want you to be a part of this, but the vision God's given you for your life. And I had never heard that from a pastor over the pulpit on a stage saying that it's not all his vision. It was, he wanted to help see the vision that God has given these individuals to be lived out. That's crazy. And so, and one of the things that brought me, because we could talk about this all day long, but we got to wrap up. But I wanted to say thank you, Jeff, so much for sharing this with us. And this is so vital to so many people. So I hope anybody listening is that, and more than anything, get this book because you need this book.
I don't think we've ever endorsed a book other than the Bible.
Yeah. Dang it. I'm the first.
No, I'm dead serious. Like, I don't think there's any book I'm like, you got to read it.
Yeah. No, like for real. This is a book I'll probably read like 10 times. If you're
unchurched, de-churched, or overchurched, you have to read Prison Break because you have to get back to the root of it. Yeah. Absolutely. Because the root of it is not avoiding people. No. The root of it is not trying to enhance the lives of other people. Like this isn't saying I don't want to serve others. Yeah. This isn't saying I'm done. I'm only doing what I feel like doing.
Selfish.
Yeah, this is not
boundaries.
Exactly. This is not about being anti-Christ, which Christ came. I did not come to be served, but to serve.
Yeah.
So servitude is a part of the DNA of being a Christian, and we agree with that.
And when I thought about what Jeff was saying was like, this year we went up to retreat. We ended the year with like talking about what we felt like we really got and how we have grown as individuals. And the first time ever, and you're just bringing confirmation, is the first time ever I was able to say, I'm actually, for the first time ever, feeling like I am doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing, and I am who he's called me to be. And there's so much power in that.
Yeah.
There's so much power in that. So overall, I think it's about finding out who you are and God's called you to be.
Talking.
And that's where you just have to go back to.
Bro, it's actually before a prison break, but just being in that mindset, it causes us to restructure how we onboard people to volunteer serve at Legacy, because we were guilty of, hey, here, especially as a church plant, we need people with a pulse.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, you like Jesus and can tolerate people, we'll get you on the team. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But this second year, we were like, we want to. The theme for our year is growing deeper in love with Jesus, and part of that was we want to make sure we're not creating teams of people that are just filling needs. So we created our onboarding process for Legacy DNA. It's almost like a growth track. Is we do the first week of finding who we are and finding who you are. So you take a personality assessment, you get to really know yourself, and then you take a spiritual gifts assessment.
Yes.
So we do a whole week of just finding who you are. And then the second week is now find your fit.
Yeah.
Now that you've clearly been able to identify, this is how I'm wired, this is what I'm passionate about, these are my giftings, then it's like, yeah, even though there's an opportunity, or even if I'm skilled in something, just because I'm skilled doesn't mean I should be there.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's like, we're believing that this year we're going to get not volunteers, but people who are truly serving out things that they're passionate about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm excited for that.
I am. I'm excited.
Man.
We appreciate it.
Love you, man.
Love you
guys.
Thank you so much. Like, comment, and
share it. Share this one.
Share this.
And if you do want to pick up the book, you guys can go to jefftosborne.com
for sure.
Awesome.
And pick up the book.
Where can they follow you? How can they stay in touch?
At Jeff T. Osborne, JEFFT as in Tom, OSBORNE. That's all my handles on social media. jefftosborne.com is my website to get the book.
Let's do it.
Let's get it, man. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Love y'all.
Love y'all. Go love, live, and lead like Jesus.